Welcome back. Let's go out to San Diego, California. Why? Because we can. Somebody's going to push a button in the control room, and there is Corey Lewandowski, once upon a time the campaign manager for Donald Trump. Good morning to you, Corey.
Hey, Corey.
Good morning.
It's nice and early out there.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, Corey, there's a headline on Drudge right now, and it's a Fox News alert. The headline on Drudge says, Doomsday canceled. North Korea has decided not to launch any missiles toward Guam this week. That after Kim Jong-un met with his top military officials yesterday, and they essentially, Corey said, you can't win. So now it sounds like, in the face of the tough rhetoric of the president last week, talking about fire and fury and locked and loaded, North Korea is backing down.
Well, look, I'm not surprised by this at all. What we have seen from previous administrations for 30 years is trying to coddle North Korea, trying to work with them. What this president said was, you don't want to mess with me. He's a man of business. He and General Mattis, the Secretary of Defense, was very clear. If North Korea launches a missile at us, General Mattis said it will be a declaration of war. And we are the world's greatest superpower. The President of the United States was very clear that if North Korea tries to do something against the United States, he will react swiftly, decisively, and it will be a complete annihilation. And I don't think they're ready for that.
Yeah, coming down hard. We'll see how all of that plays out. But, Corey, I want to get your thoughts on everything that's happened since Charlottesville and the riots there and the deaths. It was a horrific day on Saturday, but the president came out again yesterday giving a strong statement about unity in this country and directly calling out these hate groups, the KKK, the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists. He's been criticized, though, saying this is too little, too late. He only did this to please the media. You know the president almost better than anybody. Was this about doing the right thing, or was he trying to please the media?
Look, the president, I think, has been very clear that he's not in this to please the media. He's in it to serve the American people. And what he said in the very most basic terms was, this was a disgusting event. The fact that lives were lost down in Charlottesville was a terrible tragedy. There's no place in civilized society for this. He's condemned this in the very strongest terms humanly possible. But unfortunately, the mainstream media, the liberal left, they don't want to give him the credit which he deserves. You know, you have to remember this. The president was very forceful the day that this happened. He came out and made another statement about this from Washington, D.C. yesterday, and they still don't want to give him the credit because that's not the narrative that they want to have on the president. They want to continue to say things which are factually inaccurate, and we saw his tweet yesterday where he said, even though he made additional statements, the fake news won't give him the credit. Yeah. That's exactly the truth. If this was anybody else, they'd be praising the president for his swift answer on Saturday when it happened, and the follow-up yesterday when he went out again and criticized this disgusting, terrible display of anti-Semitism that should never have taken place.
Corey, it's got to be interesting to make decisions inside a White House where no matter what you do, you will be criticized, even if you are correct. Would you have made the same? Would you have advised the president differently at all? Because he came out and generally said, I condemn all this hatred and bigotry, and then 2 days later was more specific. But would you have handled it differently, or is all these calls being made by the president?
Well, I think what's important to know is this, is that there is no place in a civilized society for any type of this hatred. We have to all get along. We're one great country. We're the greatest country in the world. And this should not be acceptable on any side. And I think what the president was trying to say was, it's not acceptable on the alt-left. It's not acceptable on the alt-right. It's not acceptable anywhere in a civilized society. So this shouldn't be held, people should be held accountable for their actions, regardless of where they stand on the right or the left. This is unacceptable. That's what the president said. He reiterated that message in the strongest possible terms yesterday from the White House, and the media says, well, it was too little too late. I think that's a terrible thing. I think that the media should be embracing the president's words, saying he's trying to bring the country together. He's committed federal law enforcement resources to go down and make sure that it is fully prosecuted down there as what now looks to be a hate crime and or a domestic terrorist activity. So the president's doing everything he can to make sure that the Department of Justice is involved and we're holding people accountable.
All right. Speaking of the Department of Justice, Corey, let's take folks back to January 20th, Inauguration Day in Washington, D.C. A number of people, I think a couple hundred, were actually arrested because of the rioting and things like that the day that Donald Trump became President of the United States officially. The Department of Justice is now asking the web hosting provider DreamHost to give up 1.3 million Internet addresses from a website that organized these particular protests. And, you know, that can include names and addresses and telephone numbers of the people who simply went to the website. to some, it looks like, you know, that's an invasion of privacy. I was just looking to see what was going on. Do you think this is appropriate?
See, what I think is appropriate is holding people accountable. You know, I was there on Inauguration Day. I had the privilege of sitting on the platform when the President of the United States was sworn in. And then what we saw was the rioting in downtown, people throwing, you know, stones and bricks through buildings and glass for no reason. You know, and look, you have to hold people accountable. There were a number of arrests that day. But if you can prevent this from going on, moving forward, you should absolutely be able to do that. I don't understand why people continue to destroy buildings which have nothing to do with it, overturn cars, light things on fire, and think it's a semblance of free speech. It's not a semblance of free speech. It's vandalism. Yeah. You talked about it earlier in the show. When people take matters into their own hands and they decide to rip down statues or destroy things, personal property or public property, because they think it's the right thing to do, that's called vandalism. You need to hold people accountable
on all
for
sides of the aisle. Well, Corey, staying with the law here, California is now following in Chicago's footsteps, suing the Department of Justice over threats to withhold federal funds to sanctuary cities. We are still debating this. When you talk about sanctuary cities, there should be issues that just aren't political. When you talk about just common sense, right? You have illegals in this country that are committing crimes that should be reported that are not. What is going on here?
Well, Newt Gingrich actually wrote a great piece on this on Fox.com just a few days ago about the sanctuary city component of this. And look, he talks about Chicago. 4,331 people shot in Chicago last year, 761 people killed. You know what? Law enforcement has to have the ability to do their job. But what that means is we should be able to crack down. And part of the component of getting money, if you're a sanctuary city, is you have to allow the Department of Justice to come in and question the people who are being held as illegal aliens. They're coming in and committing crimes. Look, what you have to do is you have to be pro-American for a change. That's what this president has said. It has to be pro-jobs, pro-American families. This isn't anti-illegal immigration. This is pro-American, which means if Kate Steinle was still alive today, she'd be out talking about the fact that illegals who've been deported 5 times probably shouldn't be in this country anymore. California has been a haven for activity, for people to come into this country illegally, commit crimes, get caught, get deported, and then come back. This is a terrible cycle. And for the first time, we're going to stop giving money to sanctuary cities so they have to enforce the laws of the people who are here illegally. Absolutely the right thing to do.
The kicker in all of this is just enforcing existing law. It's called the rule of law. Corey Lewandowski, thanks a lot. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you. All right.